Hey guys, Aaron Cybertron Zhang here, and today I'm back with another episode of Road to Ranked, where I climb the online Regulation G VGC ladder in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet and provide live commentary as I go. In this video, I'm going to be featuring the team that finished ranked number 1 at the end of the July 2024 ranked season. This is one of the most impressive accomplishments that you can have on the in-game ladder, since so many people are fighting for number 1, and there's no guarantee that you'll be able to reach that spot unless you're playing all the way until the very end of the ranked season. What's really cool about this team is that it features a Speed Booster Energy Iron Valiant, which is really valuable for support. This set has Encore as well as Disable, which can be really disruptive to opposing Pokemon, and it also has Coaching. Coaching is particularly really strong when paired with Calyrex Ice Rider. You give Calyrex an immediate attack and defense boost, and this Pokemon just becomes so much stronger, and you can snowball super quickly with it. As always, I'll do a quick breakdown of the team, but if you want to just skip to the battles, check out the timestamps down in the description below, and thanks so much as always for joining me. If you enjoyed, I'd really appreciate if you consider leaving a like in the video or subscribing to the channel. It really helps out a ton. Anyway, let's dive into things. If you're interested in trying out the team, the rental code is on the screen, and there's also an accompanying Pokepaste down in the description below. This team revolves around using some of the strongest Pokemon in the format, including Calyrex Ice Rider, Water Urshifu, Rock Ogerpon, and Raging Bolt. Iron Valiant and Clefairy are both used as support. Now, Iron Valiant's a Pokemon that does not see a lot of play in this format, so people just generally don't know what to expect when fighting against it. Coaching is immensely strong when paired with Calyrex in particular, and Encore and Disable is super disruptive. Iron Valiant's also pretty bulky, so it can often force a Pokemon into a bad position after turn 1, surviving an attack, or you could switch it in as your opponent's going for something like Fake Out, and then immediately make one slot useless. Disable, of course, really valuable into all of the choice users that exist in this format as well. And if you're able to actually get Encore and Disable off against something and make a Pokemon struggle, it's the ultimate nightmare. This team just revolves around figuring out ways to deal a lot of damage quickly, but Clefairy and Iron Valiant are really important in protecting your Pokemon, especially that Calyrex Ice Rider. I just wanted to give a quick shout out to the team creator as well as the player who was able to accomplish rank number 1 at the ranked season. You can see here them posting their number 1 finish at the end of the season, and of course the rental team in Japanese, so the original rental team. So huge congratulations to Kim0227Poke for such an impressive accomplishment, and of course a huge thank you to them for sharing this team with us. Breaking things down, the first Pokemon to highlight, of course, is Iron Valiant. By the way, question of the day, the Regulation H rule set, which will be what we're playing next in VGC, has been announced. I'm curious on your thoughts down in the comment section below. For me, I'm really excited to start playing and featuring teams in the format and just covering the format in general once I'm back from Worlds. Now, for Iron Valiant, first of all, this is a speed booster set, and it's really bulky. This Pokemon actually has really good offensive stats, but we're using it mainly as a supportive set here. With this amount of speed investment, you're outspeeding max speed Choice Scarf Urshifu and things that speed creep it just by a little bit as well, which is really valuable. And of course, the idea is to try to use Coaching to boost the attack and defense of your Pokemon, especially Calyrex Ice Rider, and of course use Encore and Disable to just stop opposing Pokemon from using what would otherwise be threatening attacks. Moonblast is nice because your attack and special attack stats are relatively similar, but you're going to run into Intimidate, for example, right? So having a way to just hit from the special spectrum, especially because you already have 3 physical attackers on this team, is also valuable. Iron Valiant can be a Pokemon that can just be led immediately, but of course you don't have Protect on this set, so you have to be worried about something like Fake Out plus an attack into Iron Valiant just KOing it immediately. That being said, if your opponent does not knock you out, for example, on turn 1 and they go for Fake Out, then you can just Encore them onto Fake Out on turn 2. But Iron Valiant plus Calyrex Ice Rider is probably one of my favorite lead combinations with this team. The Calyrex on this team is really straightforward, but the 2 things I want to call out is that it's normal Terra, which is really valuable against Calyrex Shadow Riders. As you'll notice, nothing else on this team actually resists or is immune to Astral Barrage, so having something that gives you an immunity to Astral Barrage is a really big deal. You're also min speed on this Calyrex Ice Rider, and that doesn't seem too crazy, but a lot of people have actually been moving away from min speed so that they don't need to set up Trick Room, right? So with this min speed, you can have a little bit more confidence that when you're playing against other Ice Riders, there's a decent chance you will just be outpacing them. And even if you're both min speed, at worst, you're just going to be speed tying under Trick Room. I think Calyrex Ice Rider is actually a really favorable matchup for this team because Iron Valiant can boost this thing's defense, and you have Clefairy with Friend Guard as well as Heal Pulse, and so it's really difficult to knock out Ice Rider when you are also an Ice Rider player. Clefairy is the next support option on this team, and this is basically designed, of course, to enable Ice Rider as much as possible. Friend Guard is just such a good ability, right? You're decreasing the amount of damage that your allies take. Heal Pulse is really nice because with coaching, you can just survive attacks for longer. So sometimes opponents will dedicate a lot of resources towards trying to knock you out, but then you can bring out Clefairy, especially if you've set up Trick Room, for example. Single Heal Pulse can just undo so much of the work that your opponents will put in. And Helping Hand, of course, just really nice when comboed with Glacial Lance to allow you to just snowball the game. Ground Terra exists on this Clefairy specifically for the Miraidon matchup. Against Miraidon teams, you should actually think about this as one of your primary Terra options because there's not that many other valuable Terra options outside of Raging Bolt, for example. So against Miraidon, Ground Terra here allows you to Ground Terra immediately, and that can stop a Volt Switch, right? Imagine you lead something like Clefairy, Calyrex Ice Rider, Ground Terra, Volt Switch, because they're not going to click Draco Meteor when Clefairy's out on the field, and then it stops them from switching out. Calyrex Ice can just Glacial Lance immediately and get a knockout onto Miraidon. So you can see two different unique defensive Terras here that can really catch opponents off guard on ladder. To round out the team, you've got Raging Bolt, which just continues to be one of the best offensive options in this format. This is a super offensive and bulky set with a little bit of speed investment to help outspeed Raging Bolts with no speed investment or little speed investment. You can run Electric or Fairy Terra. This is just Electric Terra to just do as much damage as possible with your Thunderbolt and your Thunderclap here, and you're also Life Orb here since Booster Energy is committed on Iron Valiant. Urshifu on this team, super straightforward. Stellar Terra, Surging Strikes, Close Combat, Aqua Jet, Detect. This is how most people are running Urshifu right now with Focus Sash. Sash is so valuable because otherwise Urshifu just gets popped by things like opposing Raging Bolts with Thunderclap, for example, or restricted Pokemon just doing massive amounts of damage. And the Sash just ensures that you can survive a big attack and, retaliate back. Finally, you've got Rock Ogerpon here. Rock Ogerpon has been a really nice partner for Calyrex Ice Riders, and it's because it not only pressures with damage, but also gives you Follow Me, and you have Sturdy. Sturdy is just such a nice ability in a format where you have so many really powerful attackers, and so to have essentially two Focus Sashes between the Urshifu and the Ogerpon is really nice. Rock Ogerpon, of course, as well as Urshifu, can capitalize off of coaching from Iron Valiant as well, although for the most part, I think when I'm using coaching, it's normally Onslaught Ice Rider, since Ice Rider is already just so naturally bulky, whereas like the defense boost is not as valuable for these Pokemon, but you should still consider scenarios where you can get a coaching onto these. Power Whip is just immensely strong as well, and this gives you a really nice answer. You have multiple ways to hit like Kyogre for super effective damage, for example. Calyrex Ice Rider here being normal Terra instead of being something defensive like Water means, of course, that you are a little bit more vulnerable to certain offensive typings, and so Ogerpon, Urshifu, and Raging Bolt as a trio really cover for a lot of the things that will threaten Calyrex Ice Rider a little bit more now since you're running normal Terra. So when I play with this team, I think the first thing I ask myself is, do I need to set up Trick Room? If so, then I'll try to commit to a lead like Clefairy Calyrex or Ogerpon Calyrex to try to set up Trick Room in the early game. This is especially valuable if you're up against really fast teams, because then you can have things like Urshifu and Raging Bolt sweep actually under Trick Room. For example, if you're up against like Calyrex Shadow Rider Tailwind, this can be a really valuable core. If you don't necessarily need Trick Room, then you can consider leading something like Iron Valiant with Calyrex Ice Rider to like start putting on pressure with boost. And even if you commit to Trick Room, this is still actually not bad because you can set up Calyrex in the early game, get a coaching boost onto it, Valiant faints, you set up Trick Room, and then you use like Clefairy and Ice Rider to just kind of destroy your opponent from there. But if you didn't want to set up Trick Room necessarily in the early game, of course, any combination of like Raging Bolt, Urshifu, Ogerpon are all just put on a lot of offensive pressure immediately. But I find with this team, it feels very heavily centered around Ice Rider, so I prioritize it a lot. In terms of things to watch out for Calyrex Ice Rider, with this being the normal Terra set, you have to be careful about committing your Terra early and then becoming weak to super effective fighting type attacks. I've had games where my opponents have had Pokemon like Chiyu or Calyrex Shadow Rider, I Terra early, and then suddenly I'm weak to close combat from something like Urshifu or fighting type attacks from Iron Hands, for example. So that's one thing you'll definitely want to be cautious of. This Ice Rider, of course, is also going to be weak into Wide Guard users because you're mainly relying on Glacial Lance, so Pokemon like Pelipper as well as Zamazenta can give it a little bit of trouble in a vacuum. Iron Valiant and Clefairy on this team are really vulnerable to taunt, so if you are able to get a taunt onto them, you really shut them down. That's something to be cautious of because if you do get taunted, you will often feel forced to switch out, and your opponent, of course, can capitalize off that and take advantage of that. Urshifu as well as the Ogerpon are obviously frail on this team. There's no bulk invested. And of course, you do have the Focus Sash as well, Sturdy to survive attacks, but you still have to be very careful about that. And then Raging Bolt here is, only 60 speed EV. So I had one match where I lost because my opponent just had the faster Raging Bolt and they were able to get a big attack off before I was able to hit them in return. Surprisingly enough, I actually struggled a lot against Miraidon compositions with this team, and I think that's because Miraidon in closed team sheet can have a bunch of surprises. One of the Miraidon teams I ran into had Frigoraph with Imprison as well as Trick Room, so it denied my Trick Room on Calyrex Ice Rider. They also had Protect on their Frigoraph, so I couldn't Protect either. I also ran into Miraidon sets such as Electric Terra, Choice Specs Discharge. That's actually how people started running Miraidon, but a lot of people have moved towards Fairy Terra, Dazzling Gleam, and so even just not knowing like which Terra Miraidon's going to be can be a little bit tricky. And then I've also played against an Electric Terra, Dazzling Gleam Miraidon with Life Orb and Protect, right? So these small techs can go a really, really long way, and a well-maneuvered Miraidon team can be scary because those teams often have Iron Hands and Frigoraph as well, so you don't necessarily just want to set up Trick Room, right? One of the other things Ice Rider can be vulnerable to is Pokemon that outspeed it even when Trick Room is set up, because it's still base 50 speed, right? So Pokemon around base 50 or lower with min speed can be a pretty big threat to this as well, and that feels really bad when you set up Trick Room and you're not able to outspeed Pokemon with Ice Rider. And then the last thing I'd call it is that if you do set up Trick Room, Valiant becomes a huge liability, and so you have to be careful bringing this if you are committing to Trick Room. There's a Yamega here. I have and a Bronzong and a Sableye. This is such a cool team. I'm really excited to fight against it. Yamega, Groudon, Sableye, Urshifu, Bronzong, Fluttermane. Okay. We have to worry about Will-O-Wisp potentially from Sableye. I think the redirection users here are valuable. I'm a little bit less excited about the Raging Bolt into this matchup. Ogerpon's interesting because it threatens Groudon both before Terra and after Terra if you're Fire Terra. Urshifu on my side becomes a little bit weaker since Groudon's going to set up the Sun, so I think it's probably the bottom 4 Pokemon, honestly. And I'm actually pretty interested in a lead of Iron Valiant plus the Calyrex Ice Rider because I can just go for Coaching or Moonblast immediately if they lead Sableye. Sableye probably has Gravity here, I would guess on that. And then I think I'll go Clefairy plus Ogerpon in the back. The main thing I'm curious about in this matchup is the Sableye moveset. Gravity is a move that I would expect it to run, but then you can run things like Will-O-Wisp, Taunt, Foul Play, Light Screen, Reflect, Fake Out. Sableye is just an incredibly versatile Pokemon. So if it has Will-O-Wisp, I think the game becomes a little bit more difficult. Without Will-O-Wisp, I feel a lot more confident because I think even after just a single coaching boost, Calyrex becomes really scary. But it's going to be Sableye and Yamega. Not a lead I would have expected to face here. Very cool. Okay. Wow, even turn 1 alone is interesting. We have a lot of different things we can go for. Personally, I don't mind going straight for Coaching on an Ice Rider into Glacial Lance. I don't think we need to set up Trick Room right now, given that I have the Iron Valiant out on the field. I think after this turn, Iron Valiant can be really disruptive with Disable and Encore, and I think even if Sableye has Will-O-Wisp, or even if it clicks like Fake Out here into one of the 2 slots, well, the other slot's still putting in a lot of work, right? And Iron Valiant's actually pretty tanky as well, so... Okay, they're going to go straight for Gravity here, which makes me think Yamega might go for Hypnosis onto the Ice Rider. Which, I don't mind falling asleep here if it means you're not doing any damage. Yep, it is going to be Hypnosis. Okay, makes sense. Very cool strategy. Now you're going to get us a little speed boost as we take our first turn of sleep. Okay. I'm worried about this having Foul Play. I've got Clefairy plus Ogerpon in the back. You're probably going to want to put me to sleep now. I don't mind going for Disable here to stop your Hypnosis. I'm thinking about committing my Terra here early in case they have Foul Play on the Sableye. And then just going for Glacial Lance. The thing about a strategy like this is you're not putting on very much offensive pressure. Of course, I am threatened by Bug-type damage from Yamega as well, which is the other reason I'm going for this Terra. But Sableye just hard pivots out. Okay, fine by me. And they're going to go into Groudon. Or sorry, not Groudon, Fluttermane. I was expecting them to go into Groudon, but if you go into Groudon, obviously you're at risk of... I mean, if I wake up right now, I have a +1 Glacial Lance. It should just demolish them, right? So this is the risk of going for a strategy like this. Like Yamega getting the Hypnosis before I move is nice to deny me 1 turn, but I've already burnt a turn of sleep, so now I have a chance of waking up immediately. Okay, so now we've disabled your Hypnosis. No more sleep from you. Great. We do stay asleep here, but that's okay. Yamega gets another speed boost. Still a couple turns of gravity. I don't mind going for another coaching here into Glacial Lance personally. Because, like, I think a lot of their damage at this point indexes on Fluttermane and on Groudon, but if I'm at +2 defense with Calyrex Ice Rider, I don't really have to worry about Groudon, right? So it's kind of just a ticking time bomb for my opponent right now. Valiant's already put in a lot of work by being able to get this initial boost onto us and by shutting down Hypnosis. Because if I didn't have Disable, they'd be able to just put everything to sleep, right? So Yamega's going to go for a Tailwind, but that's fine. Don't really mind that too much. And they're going to Moonblast us. Okay, that's fine. Because now I just get the free switching into Clefairy, right? And with Clefairy, I can just angle to set up as we take another turn to sleep. Okay. So 3 turns of sleep, unfortunately, but that's okay. Because now I can just Trick Room. So let's bring out Clefairy here. I don't really even need to, like, what am I worried about here? You're still disabled for a couple turns. You set up Tailwind. It's a free Trick Room. I guess I might as well follow me here in case you have, like, a random taunt, but follow me Trick Room here seems really safe. And it's interesting, like, I spent a couple turns in this early game just to protect Ice Rider, right? I blew my Terra very early on in the game, but I don't regret doing that because by going for normal Terra, now it takes away weakness to Foul Play, Bug type attacks, Shadow Ball from the Fluttermane as well. And they don't really have much that can take advantage of this normal Terra, right? Which is why I'm willing to go for it. Okay, they're going to go back out into Sableye, fine by me. As Yamega detects, yeah. Like, the Yamega is cool, but now what is it really going to offer my opponent, right? We're going to wake up, we're going to set up Trick Room, and then it's time to just get the ball rolling. Cool. I'm happy to just go for Follow Me with the Clefairy here still. You're still disabled for one more turn. Still got one more turn of gravity here. Yeah, happy to Follow Me into Glacial Lance. And then I can just start clicking Helping Hand Glacial Lance in subsequent turns. My main question here is, what disable I go for? We've obviously seen Gravity, but that's basically it. And so it's like, in this game, I got a little bit unlucky where I ate the 3-turn sleep. I think if we woke up in 1 or 2 turns, it would have been a complete disaster for my opponent. Turns out they do have Fake Out here, okay. But this is fine. Like, it's still delaying what I feel like is the inevitable right now. We flinch. Yep, and they go for Bug Buzz. So it's Bug Buzz, Tailwind, Hypnosis, Protect, right? Which means that, like, Yamega's just not that scary. However, now Gravity and Disable have expired. So you, of course, can go for that combination again. And I suspect that they are going to be 3 turns of Trick Room, 1 turn of Tailwind. I suspect that they're going to be Focus Sash on Yamega, which is a little bit annoying. So I could go for Follow Me here, obviously. I'm just wondering if they have Quash as well, because then you could Quash Hypnosis me. But it's like, you're just not doing any damage, right? So I'm fine just going for Follow Me Glacial Lance right now. I think they'd probably just go for Gravity, maybe Taunt here. Yeah, it's going to be another Gravity. So this is where I was saying, like, if I woke up 1 turn sooner, I would have broken the Yamega's Focus Sash, and that would have been a really big deal, because then I just get to, like, fully sweep my opponent under Trick Room. But this is still fine, like, because even though, as Sableye actually manages to hang on with also what looks like 1 HP, which, honestly, I don't mind. Although, I guess if it fainted, I'd probably just win the game. Oh, but your eject button. Okay, cool. So you put the Clefairy to sleep, but how are you dealing with Ice Rider still, right? But the point I wanted to make earlier is if I had woke up a little bit sooner, then the Yamega falls asleep, and then they're really in trouble. But this is still totally fine. Like, you'll put Clefairy to sleep, but Ice Rider just gets to run away with this game, I think. What my opponent has to do, essentially, is stall out Trick Room and then put the Ice Rider to sleep, I think. They've at least stalled out their own Tailwind. That doesn't really do much. Yamega is at max speed, basically, and there's still 2 turns of Trick Room left. So I'm just going to burn a turn here. Just go for follow me. Not that it matters here, but don't want to reveal any other information. So I think here Groudon has the Terra. Oh, they actually switch. Okay. And, like, this is why I didn't mind eating up the sleep turns in this game, right? Because what are you going to do into a boosted Ice Rider with that +1 attack and defense boost, right? I think my opponent may have been better off here taking advantage of the fact like Clefairy had to burn a turn of sleep here and going for like Fire Terra on Groudon. Because now I just get this knockout on Sable and there's still a turn of Trick Room left, right? So I can just keep clicking Glacial Lance. So here's another attack boost. And don't forget, we still have Rock Ogerpon in the late game, which is really nice because if we force a Fire Terra out of that Groudon, then I can just Ivy Cudgel it for the end game. Yep, so Groudon comes back out. I think now what they're aiming to do is probably just go for Terra with this. I'm happy to just go for Helping Hand here now that I can potentially wake up. But I think Groudon should either protect or Terra. They don't Terra, which is really curious to me because I think you just... Oh, you're just going to protect here, right? Wait, they're not protecting. Okay, that's really surprising to me. I feel like you have to protect your Terra there. If you Terra, at least you survive and can get some damage onto Clefairy, but by not going for either and just giving me the free knockout, the game just ends immediately here. So, yeah, Mega was really cool. Gravity was really cool to see as well, right? Solving for Precipice Blades' inaccuracy by going for Gravity is really nice. That's something that a lot of players actually used in the 2016 season. For example, Bronzong with Gravity was really popular, and it was super effective as a strategy. But now it's just Flutter Mane. We can just go for Follow Me here into... Might as well Trick Room since Flutter Mane's always faster. Okay, they're going to spend their Terra on Flutter Mane here, but I think... Yeah, Groudon should always be protecting there or going for Terra, because I just don't think Flutter Mane can accomplish a 3v1 comeback, basically. And I think the eject button actually made things harder for my opponent as well. Clefairy eats up another turn of sleep, but as you can see here, even with bad sleep rolls, we're still totally fine, right? So here's Dazzling Gleam. Yep, and both survive. Nice. Get set up. Perfect. But yeah, normal Ice Rider here. Like, you want to use normal Terra specifically for Calyrex Shadow Rider, but it was actually pretty awesome here. Just Glacial Lance now. Yeah. So if Groudon had Terra'd or protected, I think, given that that looked like Choice Specs Flutter Mane damage to me, I think it still would have been fine, since then you... like the Rock Ogerpon plus the Ice Rider, I think is too much of a combination to deal with. But yeah, I'm curious how this game would have played out if Groudon had gone for Protector Terra that turn. I guess there's also a chance that they were like offensive Groudon, like with Ground Terra, for example. Like Choice Band Ground Terra Groudon, that would make the most sense to me, because that would explain why you wouldn't want to Terra in that position. I think like Banded Groudon with Ground Terra actually does make a lot of sense with that team composition. But otherwise, I think, yeah, if you had like a defensive Terra available, you might as well just go for it. But the nice thing about this team, or one of the nice things, is being able to force out those Terras. But all of this is to say, like, Iron Valiant was super useful for us in this early game, right? Because it essentially just enabled this Calyrex super quickly, and even though Calyrex stayed asleep for a long time, my opponent couldn't really find the positioning to get offense out. We were able to set up Trick Room. Like, yeah, Mega and Sable are really cool Pokemon, but part of the problem for them is that they, like, don't do very much after 1 or 2 turns. Yeah, Mega, of course, does threaten with Hypnosis, but being able to disable it with the Iron Valiant was a really big deal. And, yeah, I think, like, their restricted Pokemon not really being able to do anything in this game, and us having that defense boost plus a Terra to get around the super effective fire damage just put us into a really nice spot. Oh boy. Okay, we are up against one of the most infamous teams right now running around in the format, and that is Calyrex Shadow Rider with Galarian Weezing paired with Dondozo Tatsu. The idea is that Calyrex plus the Weezing is super oppressive in the early game, and as a result, you are able to really disrupt your opponents, and then Dondozo plus Tatsu is just really difficult to deal with in the late game. Iron Valiant, I think, is actually going to be a super valuable tool in shutting down Dondozo, so we're going to want to save that. But normally Dondozo is going to come out later. Normal Terra Calyrex is also a really, really big deal here. So we can just Normal Terra immediately. Question is what I want to lead with. Obviously, something like Calyrex Weezing is a lead to respect. I'm personally intrigued by Ogerpon plus the Calyrex, I think, because I can go for Follow Me, Normal Terra, and Trick Room. Could also bring Clefairy. I need an Iron Valiant in this one. Raging Bolt normally forces the Terra out from the Dondozo. Clefairy does give me Heal Pulse and Friend Guard, which is kind of interesting. But I think we're mainly going to try to shut it down with Iron Valiant here. So then it leaves Urshifu and Raging Bolt. I'm going to go with Raging Bolt here. Cool. I think I could go Clefairy plus the Calyrex Ice Rider as well. But I'm worried if it's Choice Specs Ghost Terra Astral Barrage and you one-shot Clefairy and then Taunt goes into the Ice Rider. Actually, I think one play I could have thought about was just leading. Well, I guess they could have Will-O-Wisp, right? But normally it's going to be Strange Steam, like Poison Gas. You're not going to run Will-O-Wisp or Taunt, actually. But it's going to be Mousehold and the Calyrex. Okay, fine by me. So we're just going to follow our general strategy here. We're going to just go for it with the normal Terra right away. Trick Room. And I'm still going to go for the safe follow me here. Just to avoid any shenanigans from the Mousehold. Because so many of the Calyrexes on these compositions are choice specs, if they commit to Astral Barrage, they're going to be in really tough shape going into the next turn. And I can Glacial Lance pretty easily. But yeah, I think it's interesting here because I think one approach we could take in this matchup is try to just go like Helping Hand Glacial Lance, although Mousehold here should be Friend Guard as well, so I actually don't think that would have worked super well here. But the normal Terra I think is really, really important. Without normal Terra, we kind of just get destroyed by Calyrex. So we send our normal Terra here. And if we get Trick Room up and they're locked into Astral Barrage with the Calyrex, we should be in really good shape. Okay, they just go for Helping Hand. That's fine. Here's Follow Me. And like I said, it should just be Astral Barrage here. Perfect. The only downside is I missed the opportunity to maybe attack with Ogre Palm, but that's fine. Cool. And it puts my opponent in a tricky spot, right? Because it's like, what do you actually want to do with the Calyrex slot now? I think, like, you could, for example, switch into Dondozo. I'm happy to just go for Glacial Lance right now. And I'm actually just going to Power Whip into Calyrex. Because one play I could see, it, for example, is you protect the Mousehold, and then you switch Calyrex out into Dondozo. Which would be really risky and would actually probably lose them the game on the spot if they went for it. The better play, I actually think, would be to double switch immediately right now. Go Dondozo on the Mousehold slot and Tatsu on the other slot. Which would be really interesting. Okay. Calyrex is switching before Mousehold, though, which makes me think they're not double switching, which is huge for us. Oh, they brought out Iron Hands. Okay, so it's not Dondozo Tatsu in the back. And they go for Feint, which will knock out the Ogre Pawn, revealing that they have Feint. Okay. So we'll go for Glacial Lance here. Solid damage. Now I can bring out the Raging Bolt. Oh, part of me wants to bring out Iron Valiant, because if they click Fake Out, I can just Encore them into Fake Out. But they might just click Drain Punch, for example, or Close Combat. Smart of them to not bring the Dondozo in this one. We had a hard counter against it. I'm just going to go for Glacial here and Thunderbolt into... do I want a Thunderbolt? Actually, I'd rather Draco here. I'm just... Like, if there's Salt Vest, Draco won't KO, which is my problem. What am I worried about here right now? Follow Me or Protect Drain Punch? You know what? I think I'm still down to Glacial Lance here. And Draco Meteor. Yep, they protect. Okay, cool. Now I just wonder if I get this knockout. Because they'll have Friend Guard here. Iron Hands being faster under Trick Room is also kind of annoying for me. I think if we get this KO, though, we're in really good shape. If it's Assault Vest, I actually don't expect to get it, but maybe I should have gone for high horsepower there instead. Yeah, doesn't get the KO. Okay. That is a little bit annoying. Especially because it looks like a damage roll as to whether or not they get a KO. So we'll want to time this so that we get Valiant in as Trick Room ends. So I'm happy to protect right now. And then launch another Draco into hands. The protect is kind of obvious is the problem. Oh, and they have Feint with Mouse Hold. I should have switched out this turn. Okay, but they go for Follow Me. Cool. Nice. That's good. Because now I can look towards switching out. The problem is I want to switch out both of my Pokemon. And the fact that Drain Punch is a roll on a 2-hit knockout is what scares me. Because if they don't get the 2-hit KO, they're in really tough shape. I'm also curious what their fourth Mon is. Because if you didn't bring Dondozo or Tatsu, it would be Weezing, right? So I'm wondering if they solo brought Dozo or Tatsu. It's Weezing. Okay. That works for me. I am happy now then to switch into Iron Valiant here. This is interesting. I want to switch into Valiant, but I don't want to actually knock out the Iron Hand, so I'm just going to Thunderbolt into Weezing. The reason why I don't want to just knock them out is because then, well, I guess if you are Choice Specs and you lock in Astro Barrage, you have no way of dealing with Ice Rider. But I think Valiant's in an interesting spot right now because, first of all, we resist the Drain Punch, and now I can just go for Moonblast onto them next turn and then switch out. Yeah, they're going to go for the poisons right now. Okay. But yeah, it's interesting because Calyrex has to lock into attack. Unless they're actually not Choice Specs, which I guess could be the case given that they didn't commit their Terra. Like, we have to remember Terra hasn't been blown yet from them either. Okay. Trick Room expires now. So one of the approaches I was thinking is we Moonblast, get the KO onto this, switch out into Ice Rider. The problem is the booster energy not activating on this either. You know what else I could do? Coaching? Switch in here. Because that would allow me to survive Drain Punch for sure. And I could see them protecting potentially, or... yeah, playing a little bit defensive here. Okay. Neither protector switch. That's okay, though. Let's see what they go for. Strange Steam. Yep. Oh, that's a one-hit knockout. That's strong. And Heavy Slam. Okay. Nice. Cool. So now what I can do, I think we've positioned this decently well. I can just Glacial Lands with this right now. That was a little bit scary because they could have Drain Punched into that slot. But I think they doubled up onto Iron Valiant, right? Why else would you want to heavy Slam into that slot? The question I have to ask right now is whether or not I want to Trick Room with this. Because if we Trick Room, then we obviously are going to outpace the Calyrex in the end game. So the play I'm leaning towards right now is Draco Meteor into this and Trick Room. Because I think the Calyrex Ice Rider under Trick Room is just too difficult to deal with. Them not going for Drain Punch was huge. I would have survived Drain Punch anyway. But the fact that we have more HP to work with here is awesome. Because it means, like, I don't just fall to Galarian Weezing right now, right? Okay, so Draco gets that KO. The other thing I thought about was just going for a double knockout here with Thunderbolt Glacial Lance. But I figured if I get Trick Room up... Okay, they Strange Steam, yep. This is one strong Weezing. Wow. They do get the knockout there. But Trick Room gets set up. Okay. So let's see. No Terra's been committed yet. We do have this attack boost, obviously, on my Calyrex. Normally, these Calyrexes are just max HP, max speed. So I'm gonna just send it with Glacial. It was probably worth protecting here to scout out for a Terra, but the reality is if you have a defensive Terra, I lose this game anyway. So no Terra, okay? Nice. Let's go. Oh, that coaching boost was huge. It gave us the attack boost I needed to get that double knockout here in the end. That was such a satisfying way to win. Okay, wow. But it was really smart of them to not bring Dondozo Tatsu, because I think if Dondozo Tatsu came out, Iron Valiant would have just been able to shut that down completely. So that was my game plan. It's actually pretty uncommon, like in the times I fought against this team, for my opponents to not bring Dondozo Tatsu, so I was operating in unknown territory here. I think the biggest turn was when Mousehold went for Follow Me, because they had the opportunity to go for Feint plus Drain Punch that turn, which I don't think I covered for super well there. And I might have just lost the game on the spot there if they got a higher, like the same roll, not even a higher roll, the same roll as they did earlier with Drain Punch, right? Because it did just over 50% the first time around, and they would have had a little bit of chip damage from Feint as well. So it was a little bit scary because by committing my Terra early, it meant that Iron Hands could hit us for super effective damage, and Hands was able to live the Draco Meteor plus Glacial Lance. That turn, I think the protect on Mousehold was fairly obvious, so I could have gone for a high horsepower Draco Meteor instead, which I think would have secured the knockout and may have been better. Weezing was also actually a huge threat for my opponent's team, right? I was able to get the knockout onto Iron Valiant as well as the Raging Bolt, so consistent fairy type damage from Strange Steam is actually a really big deal. But fortunately, even with both of those getting knocked out, Calyrex was just set up so well thanks to that coaching boost. But yeah, getting that attack boost meant that we were able to just get a double knockout there in that end game, and that felt so good. Okay, haven't seen Dusclops or Sylveon in quite a long time. I was like, the last time I remember seeing both of those together was, it feels like back in Sword and Shield. It's mainly the Dusclops. I just haven't seen Dusclops in a minute. Really worried about Will-O-Wisp and Haze on that. Haze would obviously get rid of any coaching boosts. We don't actually have super good ways to hit it for damage either. Like, one of the approaches I'd like to take, I don't know if it has Haze is the thing, right? So if I can get a coaching boost on an Ice Rider and then get Clefairy out next to it, then I can just spam Helping Hand Glacial Lance. So that's one approach I think we can take. Against Calyrex Ice Rider, I definitely don't want to be bringing, I think, Raging Bolt. Urshifu could come out in the matchup, but I'm a little bit worried about the Water Pond on their team. But it's still, of course, a resist to Glacial Lance. I might go Valiant Ice Rider here, honestly. Clefairy in the back. I think Ogre is not a bad fourth here. Gives me 2 redirection users. It pressures Ivy Cudgel. It's between Ogre Pond and Urshifu. Assuming Trick Room is set up, both are going to be slower, basically. But I like Ogre a little bit more because of the Ivy Cudgel super effective damage onto Ice Rider. So, let's see. But I think Dusclops is my main fear just because, one, it's just not common anymore in VGC. But, like, you know, generally Dusclops likes to run Trick Room, Nightshade, Will-O-Wisp, Haze, Pain Split, just to name a couple of moves. And if I had Haze, it would actually be a huge problem here. It's going to be Dusclops Sylveon. Oh, boy. Okay. I'm a little bit worried about the immediate Will-O-Wisp. I'm also worried about Sylveon just going for Hyper Voice here. Valiant's also not in the best shape here. I could Steel Terra this to survive the turn. I just, like, do we think Dusclops wants to Trick Room right now, or does it have Will-O-Wisp and does it just go for it? I really want to just go for coaching into Glacial Lance here. I think I'm going to just go for it. Okay, no Protect, no Terra, no switches, so I get coaching off immediately. Because basically what I'm thinking is if they go for Trick Room here, that's totally fine, because then I just get Clefairy out, right? I'm fine losing Iron Valiant just for the coaching boost in this game. I thought about Steel Terra, Protect Ice Rider, and if they went for Will-O-Wisp on Dusclops, then I could disable Will-O-Wisp into Glacial Lance the subsequent turn. But now we get +1 Glacial Lance into both. Oh! Okay. Well, now even if we get burnt, I guess we're still back to neutral. And they Trick Room. Beautiful. Because now I get to bring out Clefairy. Okay, amazing. That could not have worked out any better for us. Yeah, now they bring out Calyrex. Cool. So now my main question is whether or not they have Haze, because if you don't have Haze, now I have Friend Guard and Heal Bolt support from Clefairy, and we're also min speed with our Ice Rider, so at best, or at worst, we speed tie. I'm happy to just follow me now, Glacial Lance. I can't express how much a single coaching boost matters with this Iron Valiant, though, right? Like, being able to get an early attack and defense advantage against other Ice Riders is huge. Yep, they had Will-O-Wisp. But I figured it's like, will you want to click it, right? And even if you click it, like, I'm still getting decent damage off, and you have to connect with it, basically, was my logic. And you can see them setting up Trick Room just punishes them, because now I'm just attacking first here. They might be min speed, though, and just won the speed tie here, but... Happy to two-shot a Dusclops. It's a really satisfying feeling, as they're going to Glacial Lance in return, but we're +1 defense, and we have Friend Guard. Yeah. My Ice Rider takes nothing from that. And I can just Heal Pulse all the way back up next turn. So let's see what the last one is. Ogre, Incin, Rilla. It's going to be Ogre. Cool. So with that, I don't even have to worry about, like, Fake Out Pressure. We can honestly just Helping Hand Glacial Lance here. I could Heal Pulse. I guess Heal Pulse might be a little bit more consistent. But with the defense boost and Friend Guard, I don't really see how they're getting out of this. Okay, it's going to be Terra Ice, but now that we're at +3 attack and have Helping Hand, I think I might just KO Calyrex. So let's see. I think your Ogre Pawn here needs to Spiky Shield, first of all. Okay, yeah, they do. Yeah, I mean, you'll knock out my Clefairy, but you're not knocking out my Calyrex. We move first again. Okay, still don't know if it's a speed tie or not, but the advantage of running min-speed Calyrex Ice Rider is that a lot of Ice Riders are actually not min-speed anymore. As we just get the knockout. The coaching train continues. Choo-choo. Nice. And now we are at what, +4 attack? Yeah. And basically, like, what I was thinking about in this game is, like, even if I get burnt, once we snowball knockouts, like, we'll still be able to increase our attack a little bit, right? So, yeah. But turn one, like, it played out so well for us. I think Sylveon Dusclops is a lead that, just by nature of it being slower, with Sylveon almost always clicking Hyper Voice, like, at least we knew that slot was relatively predictable. I think the main question I had is, I didn't mention it at the time, but Sylveon did run Yom previously as well. So if you could do something funky like that, it'd be a little bit scarier. But yeah, like this game actually would have looked kind of differently if Dusclops just went Will-O-Wisp on turn one, because yeah, I would have had the coaching boost. But then I just am not doing as much damage. Instead, we just got a, immediate knockout onto Sylveon, and the Dusclops was put at just over 50%. But then we got the knockout on Sylveon, so it snowballed. And them setting up Trick Room actually only helped us because our Ice Rider was faster than their team under Trick Room. So the main thing I'm curious about is if their Ice Rider was also min speed. But one thing that people have been doing with Ice Riders is not running like Brave 0 speed IV. Some people run Admin 31 speed IV. Some people even have a little bit of speed investment in it. And the idea is that you don't have to set up Trick Room then to beat other Ice Riders. But with my opponent setting up Trick Room, I would think maybe we got lucky and won a couple of speed ties. But the reality is that, like, even though they would have knocked out Clefairy, my Ice Rider was just so well protected between the defense boost as well as Friend Guard. So it was going to be really difficult for them to deal damage into Ice Rider after turn one. Eternatus. Whoa. Okay. I have not fought against one of these. Eternatus, Flutter, Chi-Yu, Raging Bolt, Urshifu, Rillaboom. I mean, it looks like a lot of Glacial Lance meat. Flutter, Chi-Yu is scary, though. Against Flutter, Chi-Yu, we don't have a good defensive Terra on Calyrex. I mean, we could survive Heat Wave. I guess, frankly, against Flutter Chi-Yu, I'd probably want to just go Clefairy Ice Rider, follow me Trick Room into Heal Pulse Glacial Lance. And I would Terra Ice Rider. I don't hate that. Rock Ogre Pawn seems like a really solid offensive pick in this one. Ursh isn't bad. I might go Valiant for it. I think Valiant's actually not bad offensively in this one, with Moonblast into Ursh as well as Raging Bolt. And I think back Valiant with this team is always interesting because if something goes wrong or I realize I don't want to commit to the Trick Room mode, I could always like protect Ice Rider, switch in Valiant, and then turn 2 I have Encore and Disable online immediately. Eternatus Chi-Yu. Oh, this is scary. Okay. I think I want to just double protect here on turn 1 and see what they want to do. Because it could be Meteor Beam. They commit a Terra immediately, okay. Into Eternatus. Fairy Terra, okay. Yeah, I also want to see if Chi-Yu's faster than Eternatus, because Scarf Chi-Yu makes sense on this composition. A lot of Chi-Yus are choice these days, so getting it to commit to a move would be good. But if they just go for Meteor Beam here and then have Sludge Bomb pressure next turn, that's really bad. Chi-Yu is faster, though. That's huge. Okay. Because that means I can just go for Follow Me Terra Trick Room. Low-key, I don't even necessarily need a Terra Ice Rider because... Ogre Valiant in the back. This is where back Ursh actually would have been helpful. Like, we don't actually have that many Pokemon can take advantage of Trick Room super well here. Could Terra this. Follow Me. I would take a lot of damage, but then I can just heal pulse it back next turn. I guess I would always get a free switch into Ogre, which is in the end of the world. So yeah, I'm just going to Follow Me, Terra, Trick Room. It's awkward because of this Eternatus. If they didn't have something that threatened Iron Valiant so much, I think what I would actually do is just Glacial Lance here. Because the thing is, with Iron Valiant, we could be disruptive to Chi-Yu. But now that I've confirmed Chi-Yu moves first, it means that, yeah, you're just going to click Heat Wave here. That's fine. Oh, they go for Meteor Beam. I might survive this, which would be huge. But it is +1, and you get Chi-Yu's special defense drop. So let's see. Okay, that was wishful thinking. Bye-bye, Chi-Yu. Or sorry, bye-bye, Clefairy. That Trick Room gets set up now. Okay. I'll bring out Ogre. But yeah, I think if I had Urshifu here, I'd be in better shape because I could just Surging the Eternatus Glacial Lance. Chi-Yu switch into Urshifu. And this protecting is like their most solid play right now. I am playing from behind, so if I actually get the turn wrong, I'm going to be in pretty bad shape. I guess a switch into Ursh actually isn't in the end of the world. I should play it safe here, I think. I'm going to cudgel this Glacial Lance. They stayed in with Chi-Yu though, okay. Smart. And they didn't protect. I mean, it's a lot of damage. Oh, wow. Eternatus, I was not familiar with their Bolt game. That's nuts. It survives the double up. I could have gone for Power Whip, but I really didn't want to miss, and I didn't think it would survive there. Wow. We would have been in great shape if we got the knockout or if I went for Power Whip. That's so impressive that it survived Ivy Cudgel and Glacial Lance. And now we're awkwardly stuck with Iron Valiant in Trick Room, which is a disaster. Yeah, it looks like it has like 1 HP. So that's, I mean, this game would look completely differently if we just get that knockout. Granted, I'd still be pretty low HP with both of my Pokemon. What else could I have done? Follow Me, High Horsepower. Ivy Cudgel this, Glacial Lance. They still would have gotten Dynamax Cannon off, though. I'm happy with the play that I ended up making. It just, yeah, I ended up surviving with the sliver. I could always win off them being spooked out by Chi-Yu, expecting wide guard. So cudgel into this. Blast into this. Yeah, they don't switch. Yeah, Eternatus Chi-Yu, just a really oppressive lead. If I were to play this game differently, I think the solution would have been bringing Water Urshifu under Trick Room. But it's tough because, yeah, I didn't know the Chi-Yu's item, right? I do get a dodge on Ogre, but don't really think it makes too much of a difference. That is so much damage. Oh my goodness. Moonblast doesn't even KO in return. Wow. But yeah, Eternatus Chi was just super, super oppressive. And I think poison damage in general is really scary for this team to deal with. They did have Urshifu in the back, so yeah, this always was going to be kind of an uphill battle for me, I think. Raging Bolt is interesting as well. I think like Bolt under Trick Room would have been solid. But yeah, I just had to commit a lot of resources, and I think poison damage in general is really strong. Like, this team shares a couple of weaknesses, right? Like poison and steel, for example. So you really consistent poison, really consistent steel damage. It can be kind of tough to deal with. And I think the way this game would have played out is even if I had knocked out the Eternatus, they just bring out Urshifu, and then you have Aqua Jet pressure onto either of my Pokemon, which is also pretty bad for me, right? So your Scarf Chi-Yu, your Eternatus is also faster than me. Like, I feel like I have to set up Trick Room and sweep under Trick Room. So like maybe bring Raging Bolt and Urshifu under Trick Room, right? Go Clefairy plus Calyrex Ice Rider as the lead, and then have Raging Bolt and Urshifu in the back. But, you know, if they weren't Scarf Chi, would I be saying that? Probably still, and they were the Eternatus set that we generally expect to see as well. So, yeah, I mean, it was definitely an unfamiliar matchup, but Eternatus just did so much damage, and it was able to survive, which was huge. But like I said, I think even if we got in that knockout, my opponent's honestly still in pretty good shape, because they were smart and just realized all I need to do is play aggressively, even though Trick Room is set up. Like, I just need to continue to get damage on the board, and you can't threaten both of my Pokemon for a knockout right now. If I had gone for Cudgel into Chi-Yu, yeah, I think I still just get knocked out. Maybe if there's a chance I survive +1 Dynamax Cannon with Ice Rider, then it's not terrible. But the problem in this game is I brought Valiant in the back, and I needed to just hard commit to Trick Room, essentially. So back Valiant actually was a liability for me if that were Urshifu or Raging Bolt. Especially Raging Bolt, I think I would have stood a better chance, right? So yeah, if I were to replay this matchup, it'd be Ice Rider Clef lead with Raging Bolt and Urshifu in the back. But it was really cool to play against Eternatus and lose against it. Did I just pull the same Eternatus opponent back to back? What? Okay, didn't know we get a best of 3 here. Or I guess game 2 of a best of 3, but I was just talking about all the adjustments I would go for. So let's do it. It's Ice Rider, Clefairy, Urshifu, and Bolt. Things are really laggy right now, but it's like specifically my controller. I don't think the game itself is lagging, so I wonder if it's because I'm running out of power. Let me plug my controller in and see. No, but well, we'll see. Yeah, I mean, this doesn't look like it's lagging right now. I can't believe we pulled the same opponent back to back. That's wild to me. Yeah, I think it's... I could Stellar Terra this as well, under Trick Room. This just means I take less damage, though, which I think is right. So Trick Room, follow me. Alright, let's run it back. This time without Iron Valiant. Valiant just can't do that much here, unfortunately. Coaching doesn't really help when I'm threatened by so much damage immediately. Yeah, so they Terra again. Into Fairy Terra. Yep. Okay, we go for Terra. So the idea is this time we set up Trick Room and I have 2 much stronger Pokemon to sweep with on their Trick Room rather than Ogerpon and Iron Valiant. So let's see if my adjustments work here. There's the Follow Me. Heat Wave comes out. Hopefully no burn. Let me go for Meteor Beam. Yep. These moves could also miss at any point. Like when you're using so many 90% accurate moves, miss is bound to happen at some point. But no miss so far. That's fine though. Goodbye Clefairy. A miss on Clef from either move would actually be a really big deal, because Clefairy surviving the turn means I get Helping Hand Glacial Lance or Heal Pulse or like Helping Hand High Horsepower, where there's a lot of different combos. Trick Room gets set up. Now I'm going to go out into... Do I want to go into Urshifu or Raging Bolt first? If I go into Urshifu, you can't protect while Trick Room is set up, so I think that's pretty valuable. Chi-Yu switching now makes sense. I'm just going to go Glacial Lance here. And Surging Strikes. Okay, they stay in with both. Your Surging Strikes. I think this gets the KO. Yeah, I think it should. Nice. Okay, Eternatus is out of the way now. You're still locked into Choice Scarf Heat Wave with Chi-Yu. You're going to Heat Wave, but you do get a free switch into Rillaboom, Ursh, Bolt. Speaking of misses, as I was talking about, there it is. Yeah, we get one onto the Ice Rider. Yeah, I mean, it's just with Chi-Yu, when you're clicking Heat Wave over and over and over again, like, the odds of you hitting so many consecutively obviously aren't the best. They bring out their Urshifu. So the question now is, what do we think this switches out into, right? If it even switches, because they theoretically don't need to switch. But essentially, if we can get another knockout right now, they're going to be in tough shape. Surging Strikes that slot. You could obviously close combat into this. I could close combat into you, but we're not like slow here with Urshifu, so there's a good chance they attack before us, which I think we need to account for. I'm going to Glacial Lance close combat Chi-Yu. Wow. They stay in with both, which I actually think is really smart. Especially, Glacial just missed the knockout there. I could have gone for Aqua Jet. I think Aqua Jet's actually the better play there, because I think Glacial probably one-shots everything they could switch into anyway. But they... Oh, what? They Surging my Calyrex. Huh. Instead of close combating. I guess they didn't want to eat the defense drop. Okay. What I was worried about was that I end up losing, or yeah, like they win the speed tie under Trick Room. Rilla's their 4th one. So now you have Fake Out pressure, obviously. You have Grassy Glide pressure as well. There's still 2 turns of Trick Room left. But Rilla probably doesn't have Protect. If I were them, what? I would probably Fake Out into Ice Rider. And then do you want to play the 50-50 speed tie onto this? Because what I want to do right now is switch into Bolt. Because I think you have to Fake Out Ice Rider. And close combat into Urshifu. And then if you knock out my Urshifu, I get Calyrex back in and I just have Glacial Lance to knock out Rilla. And then Thunderclap onto Ursh. Oh, wow. They just went for Glide. Okay, well done. Might still be fine, though. Because, like, I can eat up a CC here. They go for Surging again. Okay. I'm a little bit confused by the double Surging. Now I have Thunderclap. I can just Thunderclap Glacial Lance. Unless you're Choice Banded, Banded, Rillaboom. I think that puts us in really good shape. Nice move to just go for Glide, though, right? Glacial Lance there would have just won the game immediately, but I think I have to respect the fake out double up onto that slot, especially because my Urshifu's not really doing much for me, so this position is still fine, but my opponent made a nicer prediction there for sure. But yeah, Thunderclap into you now, and just Glacial Lance. I'm just worried about Banded Rillaboom. Okay, they detect, that's fine. It's not as important as the Glacial. Thunderclap fails. They glide. Nice. Perfect. Yep, and the idea of going for Thunderclap there is to prevent Aqua Jet from Urshifu. And obviously to just try to knock it out. So even though my opponent made the right prediction, they still weren't in a winning position, right? I figured that would be the case. But once I saw them just commit to Glide rather than Fake Out, then I just got worried about Choice Band. Right? Yeah, because I think that play makes a ton of sense with Choice Band. But now it's just a 2v1. But yeah, if they had gone for close combat onto onto this rather than Surging Strikes, I think they would have just gotten the knockout that turn, right? Which I still think was okay with. I gotta think about it a little bit more after this turn, but now I can just Thunderclap you. And set up Trick Room again. Yeah. Alright, so that's game 2 of our best of 3. I wonder if we'll get a third game. Yeah, if they had just gone close combat that turn, not getting the knockout onto Chiyu was bad with Glacial Lance. I was reading that they would switch in that position, but I don't know if I really like my play there. But I don't know. It'd feel really bad to high horsepower and then have them switch into Rillaboom, right? So I think it was worth taking the turn to try to go for it. Because if they switch into Rillaboom there, I win the game immediately. Because Raging Bolt just like hard sweeps in that end game. But the fact they stayed in, man, I could have gone high horsepower, get the knockout onto you, then close combat onto their Urshifu, which would have brought in them low. If they close combat into my Calyrex, then I still have Raging Bolt in the back as well as Urshifu, and I'm up against a low HP Urshifu as well as a full HP Rillaboom. Which I guess is pretty spooky then, right? Then you have Grassy Glide or Fake Out Pressure. You could just glide into my Urshifu, but I could protect Urshifu and just Thunderclap and then win the 1v1 Raging Bolt against Rillaboom because Raging Bolt's at full HP. Or they could Fake Out into Raging Bolt, and then if they're also Admin Urshifu, just play towards winning the speed tie under Trick Room and then close combating my Urshifu. So, yeah. It's a scary matchup for sure, right? Like, I made the adjustments, but even then it wasn't like an easy victory. But we got a lot closer, obviously, and we ended up winning the game as opposed to the last one where it got completely destroyed by Chiyu Eternatus. So it's kind of fun to see, yeah, how adjustments can happen throughout the course of a set. It turns out that we actually did not fight against the same opponent. This last one had a different username from the first one, which is just wild to me because I was thinking, what are the odds we run into 2 different Eternatus teams, or I should say the same Eternatus team in back-to-back games? So I wonder if this is just a popular rental that's running around somewhere. But either way, it's a good lesson to show how you can learn from your losses, and even though you might be playing against a different trainer, understanding an archetype is really helpful. And for me, the main lesson that I learned from playing against this team the first time was that, hey, I should not be bringing Iron Valiant into the matchup. I should be bringing my Raging Bolt and Urshifu to put on a little bit more pressure when Trick Room is set up, even though it's not the most intuitive to use those Pokemon under Trick Room. Alright, we've got Zamazenta for this one. Dragonite, Shampoo, Incineroar, Zamazenta, Pelipper, and Urshifu. Now, with Zamazentas, you're always going to be Body Press, Protect, Heavy Slam, and then there's normally one of Iron Defense or Wide Guard, although you theoretically could run both and drop, say, Heavy Slam. We also have Chien-Pao Dragonite. Incin is normally Ghost Terra. Could have Will-O-Wisp Band Taunt here. Rock Ogrebun is a really good offensive matchup into my opponent's team. I think Raging Bolt's probably necessary. I'm really interested in Iron Valiant because of the Encore Disable things it can do. Moonblast is actually also meaningful damage into a lot of their team. To be honest, this is a matchup where I want everything. I think I might go Ice Rider, Valiant, Ursh, and Raging Bolt on the back. I think Coaching Boost can be helpful here. To me, it's just dealing with Zamazenta. I guess now that I think about it, maybe back Valiant's better into Zama, because then what I could do is if you do go for like an Iron Defense on turn 1, I can just disable you. But they go with Instant Dragonite. Okay. don't mind that too much. Fake out either slot. Dragonite being choice banded here is likely. Instinct could switch into Chien-Pao as this goes for extreme speed. Mainly worried about Will-O-Wisp or Taunt from this. The play I want to make the most is actually coaching Protect. I'm also thinking about committing Steel Terra here. I actually think this is worth it. Steel Terra, coaching, and Protect. Allows me to survive the turn against Dragonite. Okay, Dragonite switches out. We're gonna go into Zama. Weak to Body Press now, which is a problem, but one thing I can consider now is switching Valiant out and setting up Trick Room. Nice play by my opponent. What we want to do now is use Urshifu to force out a Terra from their end. Protect. Okay, nice. They do fake out into Ice Rider, so now I can Encore you into fake out. Could see them going for Body Press to just knock out Valiant. But I think denying a Will-O-Wisp or a Taunt here is really important, so I'm going to go for Encore here into Instant. I'm going to set up Trick Room. Okay, good. Yep, they Body Press, KO us, but that's fine. It is just a shame to have wasted my Terra there, but I think I really needed to respect Dragonite's damage output. Although I wonder if Valiant, like what the damage roll from normal Terra choice band E-Speed is. Either way, this gives us some pretty good offensive positioning because Incineroar should switch out and I've gotten this boost. And so now I can bring out my Urshifu under Trick Room. Okay. So Instant in this position should switch out, right? We get a free Glacial Lance this turn with this, which is really nice. I would think they're going to go into whatever their fourth and final Pokemon is. It could be Urshifu, Pelipper, or Chien-Pao. So close combat. Plus Glacial is not bad here. My problem is I'm a little bit worried about Zama. But I guess Body Press shouldn't KO either slot. Do you think pushing the tempo right now is pretty good? Yeah, so I'm going to close combat into this and Glacial Lance. Oh, they go for the big brain play of staying in with both. I like that a lot, actually. Glacial does a ton to Zama, though. Is it crit? Yeah. But in trying to cover for a switch, I could have just... I mean, because we got that crit, close combat on Zama probably just wins the game right there. Oh, but they just Heavy Slam. We're not going to take anything from that. Yeah, Body Press is better there. Ice Rider's pretty heavy. Okay, nice. Still fine then. They just bring out Dragonite. Okay. But we have Terra. Oh, sorry, we have the defense boost on this, so I'm happy to just go for Surging Strikes onto Zama here and Glacial Lance. Zama switches probably out into Chien-Pao. But Extreme Speed's not knocking out either. Nice. And now you just gave up your defense boost. I think we're in a very good spot. The coaching into Encore put me in a really important position in this game. Also, now you're lowering your own Dragonite's defense. So I think -1 defense, or sorry, +1 attack, +1 defense. Ice Rider with the defense drop on Dragonite gets the KO, but let's see. We're going to Extreme Speed, I assume. Yep. Okay, and they target Urshifu, which is totally fine. We'll knock out their Chien-Pao. Now that you've committed your Terra as well, I think Ice Rider actually just wins this game. But let's see if Glacial Lance gets the one hit onto Dragonite. Yeah, nice. Yeah, switching Chien-Pao, if anything, punished them because it just increased the damage output I had onto that slot. Nice. So, it's funny because, like, the Terra with Valiant, them getting that knockout with Body Press was actually really good for us because it gave me the free switch in immediately into Urshifu. And it's, like, weird to use Urshifu that's not designed for Trick Room under Trick Room so much, but we're going up against teams that have just faster Pokemon than it, right? So I can really just take advantage of them. But now Zama's back out with no defense boost. And I can just close combat into you. And Glacial Lance. Yep. So this was an interesting one. I think, like, Zama's scary. I don't know if they were Wide Guard or Iron Defense. Iron Defense, I think, is a lot more threatening for us. Then Urshifu becomes a much more important win condition. And what we want to do is force a Terra out from Zama. And normally they're Dragon Terra or Grass Terra. And then we can use Raging Bolt, Draco Meteor, for example, under Trick Room. But overall here, I think what was a little bit scary in the early game was that turn 1, because they could have gone fake out onto Valiant, right? But getting that coaching boost and then disabling the Incineroar slot put us into a really good spot, because then I was able to get Trick Room up without my opponent really threatening me very much. And they brought 4 physical Pokemon into this matchup, right? Incineroar, Dragonite, the Chien-Pao. The main thing in this match was to avoid getting Will-O-Wisp or taunted by the Incineroar, which is why Protect was always relatively safe. And by going for Steel Terra, even if they went fake out Extreme Speed onto the Iron Valiant, I think I still would have been in decent shape, right? I was mainly worried, like, the thing I was most worried about was instant hard switch into Chien-Pao, normal Terra, E-Speed, just like knocks out Iron Valiant, which is why I did commit that Terra. And sometimes, like, even though we lost Valiant after turn 2, it was like perfect because my opponent gave me the switch in that I was looking for. And Valiant being stuck on the field while Trick Room is up is actually kind of awkward. Alright, we've got an opposing Ice Rider here. Frigoref, Blood Moon, Instinct, Grim, Ice Rider, and Amoonguss. Well, generally the approach of trying to get a coaching boost onto this and then just spamming Glacial Lance has been good, but I gotta worry about foul play from Grim, Will-O-Wisp, Flare Blitz, or, I mean, Incins actually don't run Flare Blitz that much. Will-O-Wisp and Taunt mainly from Incin. But I think Valiant being able to shut down a Grim lead and Encore them as they go for a Prio move is actually pretty valuable. So I don't mind Valiant Ice Rider, Ogre in the back to switch into Spore. And then I don't mind going all in on Ice Rider here. So like double follow me user and coaching. I think Ursh is not bad, but it's really weak into Amoonguss. And Amoonguss alone causes enough issues where I don't want to bring it. And I think Raging Bolt is not very good into a Blood Moon Ursaluna comp. Especially with screen support. Okay, Instant Grim. Now this one's interesting. I think what I want to do is Protect Ice Rider, coaching turn 1, and then Encore Instant turn 2. I'm fine if Grim gets screens up. Not a major issue right now. I'm fine if they even click Fake Out into Valiant. The main thing here is we want to shut down Incineroar. So happy to go for coaching here and happy to protect. If I were my opponent, I would probably just fake out Valiant, like Reflect, or if I had Will-O-Wisp, just go for Will-O-Wisp onto Ice Rider. This is where like something like Fire Terra would be immensely helpful, because then I don't have to like respect Instant nearly as much. Oh wow, they commit their Terra on turn 1. Huh. Okay. On to Instant. Into Ghost. So they're probably worried about Iron Valiant doing, like, launching fighting type attacks into that slot, but we don't really have any relevant fighting type attacks, so not much reason to go for it. But that's one of the beauties of using a Pokemon like this, where you can just catch your opponents off guard, right? So they go for Reflect, that's fine. Now we get coaching. Beautiful. There's a boost. Cool, and they go for Knockoff. Knockoff is a little bit annoying. I was hoping they would fake out or Will-O-Wisp. Now I can disable the Knockoff, or would I rather just Encore them into it? Because what I could do is just Encore right now, Terra, Glacial Lance. And I do think that's what I'm going to opt for here. The reason for this is because I don't know if Vincent has Will-O-Wisp. I'm going to guess they don't based on that turn 1 play, but I think my strategy in this game revolves so much around Calyrex Ice Rider that I need to just protect this Pokemon as much as possible, right? Okay, they go for Taunt. That's a good play. Unfortunately, we ran into Taunt Grim here, so no Encore. But they just go for knockoff, which is fine. Yeah, with that coaching boost, we don't take much damage at all. Glacial Lance still does so much. Okay, so now you can obviously threaten with Parting Shot. And you can taunt into this. I mean, Parting Shot for now is fine, because I have Moonblast. Right? And Glacial Lance is still doing a ton. I've got Clef and Ogerpon in the back. We've both used their Terras. Ogre's going to be good into the rest of their team at this point. I'm honestly down to just Moonblast Glacial Lance here, I think. Okay. Go for Spirit Break. That's fine. I would guess Parting Shot here. Yeah. So I don't think they have Will-O-Wisp based on how they played this. And this is fine, right? I still get damage onto the Incineroar. Glacial Lance should KO the Grimmsnarl still. Get a little bit of free chip damage on whatever's coming out. But losing the Clear Amulet hurts. If this were not Taunt Grimmsnarl, I think we'd be in really good shape in this game. But running into Taunt makes this a little bit more challenging. But that's fine. I welcome and accept the challenge. Because we still have this defense boost on Ice Rider already, right? Which is a big deal. Ooh, Grim hangs on with 1. That's a little unfortunate. Okay. You could switch back out into Incin now. I want to preserve this for more coachings in the future. So I'm happy to actually switch out into Clef right now. In Glacial Lance. I also want to get an attack boost onto Grimmsnarl by our ability. And Clef also now gives me Friend Guard for their Ice Rider. Okay, they do switch out. Probably into Incin now. Does -1 Glacial Lance can reflect KO Incin from that range? I'm not confident, but let's see. Oh, that's a bad crit. Okay. We get the KO onto Incin. Nice. So no more Intimidate shuffling now. Don't forget we have Rock Ogerpon, right? With the Sturdy. So one of the big win conditions in this endgame is we just get 2 Ivy Cudgels off into them. Grim comes back out. I could look towards setting up Trick Room right now, but with these 2 in the back, I don't think it's actually worth it. I think it makes sense to just protecting Glacial Lance here. Now that you've committed your Terra, like, we're just slowly chipping away at Ice Rider. Yeah, they taunt into Clef, which is good. Feeling decent about this spot. They move first again, so decent chance they're just not min speed here with Ice Rider, which makes sense. 133 down to 92, not bad. We'll get another knockout right now. Cool. More chip damage onto their Calyrex now. Amoonguss is the last one. Oh, that's huge. Okay, nice. Because it means you can't redirect attacks away from Ogerpon, right? I guess my only fear here right now is faster Amoonguss, which very likely could be the case here. I don't think it's worth it to switch Clefairy out, so I'm happy to give it up and just launch Helping Hand here, Glacial Lance, because then Ogerpon should just win. Their play would be Glacial Lance and... yeah, okay, Amoonguss protects, that's fine. With this, I think now we're just in a really winning spot because I just bring out Ogerpon and I just launch Ivy Cudgel into Calyrex. You can see, like, even though we tear it into something like it takes neutral damage from Glacial Lance, this defense boost and this Friend Guard makes this so hard for my opponent's Calyrex, even though they have Reflect up. Here's Glacial Lance. Nice. I'm actually thinking, do I want to go into Valiant first? Just to get an Encore off onto Amoonguss? I think Cudgel should KO Calyrex here, so I think it's fine. Yeah, there's no way Calyrex is surviving Cudgel even with... Yeah, there's 2 turns of Reflect. If there were 1 turn of Reflect, I think Valiant makes sense. But with 2 turns, I think we can just... Actually, maybe it did make sense to go... I mean, I don't see what stops Ivy Cudgel and Glacial Lance right now, though. Because you can't Spore Ogerpon anyway. You can't Rage Powder away the Ivy Cudgel. What do I lose to right now? It's just Ice Rider surviving somehow. If they don't survive, they lose immediately. Because even if you're faster with Amoonguss and you Spore me, it still doesn't make a difference. Because it's just a 3v1 against Amoonguss. Cool. Yeah, it was really important to bring Ogerpon in the back for Ivy Cudgel. Nice. And all that chip damage from the Glacial Lance is meant a really big deal. Because it meant like you could get this knockout through Reflect. Okay, we are faster with Calyrex anyway. Nice. Single target Glacial Lance now onto Amoonguss, and that's a knockout. Beautiful. So, yeah, this one was interesting because they ended up having Taunt with the Grimmsnarl, so it made it a little bit harder for Iron Valiant, because if they didn't have Taunt, I would just like shut down Incineroar and be able to basically keep racking up coaching boosts, and then Ice Rider just becomes too difficult to deal with early on. But with Taunt, Incin was able to knock us off, get the parting shot, and come back in for Intimidate. So it just slowed down Ice Rider a lot. But even with all that, like, they weren't able to get very much damage going, and then having Clefairy up next to Ice Rider meant that I was able to just survive for a good amount of time, stall out through a couple turns, get the chip damage I needed onto the Calyrex so that Ogerpon could just finish things off. Anyway, that's going to be it for this one, so thank you so much as always for joining me. Iron Valiant had so much impact today, just enabling Calyrex Ice Rider to become an absolute monster in so many of these matches. So once again, huge congratulations to the team creator for reaching rank #1 with it, and thank you to them once again for sharing the team. And if you're looking for a really strong team as we close out this format, before we revisit it in a couple of months, I'd highly recommend this one. So yeah, thanks for watching, leave a like if you enjoy, and I'll see you all soon. All right, peace.